So Beth Van Duyne, Republican for the open congressional seat in the 24th district. Thank you so much. 2 weeks to go. Lots of TV ads going back and forth between you and your opponent, and you're both accusing each other of being the extreme. So I'm wondering, what is it that your message is to the voters?
I think right now what we need to do is concentrate on getting our economy back open, getting people in jobs. Our economy was fantastic, pre-COVID. We need to get back there. I think we need to have somebody in office who is looking out for working families, who is looking to provide opportunities, expand options for families, someone who is not focused on taking jobs away, taking money out of public schools, but it's actually looking at how to expand opportunities for working families. When I was mayor, that was one of the things that I focused on. I came in during the time of a recession. I focused on bringing jobs to the area. We added 40,000 jobs during the time that I was mayor to the city. $3 billion in economic investment, and we were the 5th safest city in the country. I think looking at cities across the country right now and the positions that they're in, you want to have someone with a strong voice who is looking for the people of the 24th Congressional District and will represent them well in Congress. I did that when I was mayor, and I look forward to doing it again in Congress.
As you know, your opponent, Candace Valenzuela, has basically criticized you for supporting the effort to reopen Texas. She said it was too soon. She said that that the Trump administration, cheered on by you, was putting people in danger because they reopened without making sure people had enough PPE. What do you say to that?
I think we have seen over 200,000 people die as a result of COVID, and every single one of those deaths is to be mourned, and it's a tragedy. I think you saw the American people during the beginning of the pandemic. They were at a loss, but we all came together. We shut down the economy. We used best practices. We saw a tremendous loss in the first few months. But at some point in time, you start learning from those losses. I went out and I spoke with small business owners all across the district, and I said, what are you doing to open back up? And one example is Tyson. We saw meat that was not on shelves. We went to the grocery store, if you remember, right in the first few months. And the president came in, and I don't think he gets enough credit for this, but he came in and he said, that's absolutely not acceptable. We need to make sure those people are being provided enough food. So you had companies like Tyson that went and they looked at best practices. How can we socially distance? How can we have people wear masks? What can we use that we can get food on the shelves for people, but at the same token make sure that we are staying safe? You saw an administration that from the get-go started shutting down the border, started restricting travel from areas around the world where that virus was coming in. You saw them being very responsive to cities like New York when they said that they needed help. They don't get enough credit for that. But I think really the credit is deserved by the American people that came together and those first-line responders. We have seen what it has done to individuals, and we've seen what it's done to small businesses, to people who put everything that they had into their business and now are ready to reopen. People are ready to get back to work. They have been for a while. We need to make sure that they are safe, that we are providing them with every opportunity to stay safe. But at the same token, people need to get back to work.
Let me ask you, what are your thoughts on where Texas is right now as far as the reopening? Do you think it's just right? Do you think it hasn't reopened enough, or do you think it's reopened too much?
I think we should look at best practices. I think that's one of the things that I've been focused on. Small businesses have actually been able to reopen where you have seen that there hasn't been a big flare-up. People who are most at risk, we need to be able to help protect those people. If you're not feeling well, stay home. Practice social distancing. But I think people are ready to get back to work. We know what being at home has caused. Increases in depression, increases in use of medications, decreases in people's pocketbooks. It's important to be able to pay the rent, and it's important to be able to buy food and pay for, health care. And if you don't have a job and you're not able to do that, those things are suffering. So, yeah, I think, if you look at Texas and how it's reopened, you look at states like Florida versus states like New York. We want to protect lives, but we also want to protect livelihoods. And that, I think, needs to be at the forefront of moving forward on this.
Do you support Speaker Nancy Pelosi's $2.2 trillion coronavirus relief bill?
I have seen the Speaker and I've seen Democrats use this pandemic as an excuse to get things thrown in that under normal circumstances you wouldn't. Our aid has to be targeted at those people who need it the most. It needs to be timely so that those people, like small business owners that want to get back to work, have an opportunity to do that in a quick manner. But it also has to be temporary. What I have seen in the Speaker's bill is things that have nothing to do with COVID, things that have nothing to do with small businesses and have nothing to do with working families. Those are money that she wants to spend simply because in a normal time they couldn't get that passed through Congress or the Senate. We have people who are in need right now. We need to make sure that we are very responsive to that need and very targeted and focused. And what I've seen in Speaker Pelosi's bill is anything but that.
You have criticized Candace Valenzuela for signing a letter by elected officers to protect America, pushing for clean renewable energy and ending permitting of new oil, gas, and coal projects. Why is that a big concern of yours?
When you look at stopping future energy production, in Texas, you don't have to look any farther. That would literally gut 2 million jobs out of our economy, 2 million jobs. For a woman who claims to be interested in public schools, that would gut $78 million out of our public schools in North Texas alone. The fact that we have been able to get energy independent is not only good for the economy, but it's also good for our national security. The fact that we are no longer reliant on hostile foreign nations for our energy production is a positive thing for everybody, not just for the U.S., but for countries around the world. The fact that we're able to provide liquid natural gas to other countries that had been reliant and dependent on these hostile foreign nations has meant that we have been able to influence power without ever having to use our military. Those are things that are really important, especially now coming out of a pandemic when our focus needs to be on those working families, needs to be on jobs, and opening our school back up. I'm very critical because the fact that you've got a woman running for Congress who does not seem to understand the very basic necessity of jobs, food on the table, and good schools is quite honestly frightening.
Regarding health care, you oppose the Affordable Care Act and the public option.
Now, I've never said that I oppose it. What I've said is I believe instead of reducing people's options for health care, what we need to do is increase opportunities. So I know that seems to be a battle cry of Democrats against Republicans all across the country. It is a lie that they continue to repeat, that somehow because you're a Republican, you're not interested in things like protecting the folks with pre-existing conditions. It's a lie that continues to be repeated, but there are options. And it's not just the Affordable Care Act. We could do things like increasing people's ability to put money in their health savings accounts. We could make, for those who need it the most, their monthly premiums on health care tax deductible. We could have sales of insurance across state lines. There are options. We need to explore those options and stop looking at Obamacare, which quite honestly, even the Washington Post said it was one of the biggest lies the American people have ever been fed. It has been a failure. What it has resulted in is increases in cost beyond the means of millions of people. It has stripped tens of millions of people off insurance that had doctors and had care and had quality that they wanted. It has increased cost, it has decreased quality, and it's decreased access. Instead of continuing to follow that lie that it's somehow working, we need to get together as a body, as Congress, and come up with solutions, like I've just mentioned, that will actually help to provide people with quality care that they can afford that's personalized to what their families need.
Okay, I guess I'm a little confused because do you oppose the Affordable Care Act or not? But my question was going to be, can you oppose the Affordable Care Act and at the same time approve of covering pre-existing conditions and making sure that people can not only get the insurance, but also be covered for their actual pre-existing conditions?
I think you can definitely do that. And I think what you've seen is a rally cry from Republicans and this administration to do exactly that. I think on the Affordable Care Act, We have to have a solution that people would want to choose as opposed to being on the Affordable Care Act. And considering the quality and considering the cost, I think you've got an opportunity right now to provide additional options that people would want to choose. They could choose their own doctors. They could choose the services that best fit their families at a cost that they can afford. But to think that, it's either the Affordable Care Act or nothing at all, it's ridiculous. We have options, and we can come together with policies that would protect those people with pre-existing conditions, but also expand options. And a perfect example is Medicare Advantage. The fact that we were able to offer additional options to seniors made their costs go down, but their quality of care go up. We've seen it before. We should learn from those lessons and expand on them.
As you know, the United States Supreme Court is going to be considering Texas's lawsuit to have the Affordable Care Act basically declared unconstitutional. Do you agree with the state of Texas that it should be declared unconstitutional?
I think what we need to do is make sure that people have options to the Affordable Care Act, and I look at it as a complete travesty that we haven't gotten that. You had people who were elected, Democrats that were elected in 2018 that promised to do exactly that, and we've seen nothing. We've seen a big fight for, impeachment, but really at a huge loss to the American public on things that they care about. Healthcare being one, but another issue that's really important in this district is transportation and infrastructure. If we had passed an infrastructure bill over the last 2 years, those would have been essential jobs that people right now would be employed in. If you think about the vulnerabilities that we've been able to expose in the last 7 months, part of our infrastructure should be making sure that we've got things like medical equipment, medical supplies, pharmaceuticals that we have when we most need. And we have not had that. We have had those supplies being provided by countries like China, and when we need them the most, haven't been there. We as a body, as a Congress, needs to focus on the things that the American people want. Healthcare being up there, but an infrastructure bill as well. And instead of talking about issues like impeachment that have done nothing to provide food, to provide economic security to working families, we need to get back to work.
Policing reform is another issue that has come up this year. What would you do to reform policing, if anything?
I take this personally, having worked with our police department in Irving for over 12 years. I've gotten the support of not only our Irving Police Association, but associations across the state. I think what we need to look at is ways of being able to improve policing. And you have leaders who should be taking that gauntlet up. When I was mayor, I supported community policing. We worked on ways, and I advocated for policies that put our police officers out there to be able to build those bridges of trust, to be able to build, mutual respect in the community. We had a number of different programs, from our Police Athletic League to our Rape Aggression Defense course to our Shop Talk course. It got our police officers out and about. Waiting until something happens is too late, and it's a failure of leadership, quite honestly, at the mayor and city council level to do that. I would look at ways, instead of defunding the police, which is what my opponent, those are groups that are supporting her, whose support she has requested, instead of looking at ways of ending cash bail, which if you talk to police officers will tell you how horrible that is, because it just continues to put criminals back onto our streets. We need to look at ways of being able to provide training, additional training, but also not defund. In Dallas alone, where you're over 600 officers short, by them cutting their budget for overtime, you've essentially helped defund the police. And that's why you've seen crime increase. I was at the White House a couple of years ago, and former Mayor Mike Rawlings asked the question. He said, you have seen police officers targeted across the country. We all work with police. What would be your message? And what Obama said at that point in time was, he said, if you look at minority communities, you look at low-income communities, they don't want less police. The problem is not over-policing. The problem is under-policing. And that was a message 4 years ago that, quite honestly, I think we need to think about and we need to actually respond to. We need to get more police officers on the street, but it also has to be programs that provide community policing and mutual respect.
Two other questions, and that was, as you know, this race is rated by the Cook Political Report as a toss-up. So what are you doing to make sure that you get your supporters out there and that you win?
You know, I have never run an easy race. I have been, as you know, outspent, but I've never been outworked. And what we're doing, quite honestly, is getting out, talking to people. We are talking to families. We're talking to employees. We're talking to small business owners. We are out and about and active in the community. We've got tons of volunteers who are helping us make phone calls. We are going, on door to door. We're having events. We're being safe, but we are actually going out and reaching to people. And I think as a public servant, that's our job. We need to get out and about and engage and listen to people where they feel most comfortable. You can't call it in. As a public servant, we don't have that. We don't have the luxury of being able to work from our couch. We actually have to get out and about in the community. And while my opponent, has been working from her couch on Zoom meetings, I've been meeting people where they feel the most comfortable. And quite honestly, I think it's important to look people in the eye and to listen to them. Because your job in Congress is not to represent D.C. in this district, but my job would be to represent District 24 in D.C. And how you do that is you get out and about and you talk to people, you listen to them, and you understand what their priorities are.
My last question is just something that we have seen in multiple races across Texas this year, and that is more women running for office.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask you about that. What do you think of that?
I think we need to have more people running, period. It's always been one of my passions. I had a 2 and a 5-year-old when I first ran for public office. It's never a good time to run. But, I've always looked at it as if I'm not willing to put myself out there, then why should I expect anything, more from other people? And you need to get behind those people who share your values and your principles and are whoever willing to work for it. I was the only female that Irving has ever had for a mayor. And I never said that vote for me because I'm a woman. I said vote for me because I'm the best candidate. I'm prepared, I'm articulate, I have a vision that you can support, and I'm effective. And I would say the same thing right now. I'm not going to play identity politics. I think people need to vote for the folks that they trust the most, that they see working, that have a list of results, from proven effectiveness as a leader, and that they trust.
All right. Beth Van Duyne, thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
time. Really appreciate it, and all the
Definitely.
best to you.
Thank you.